we realized it was actually easier for us to choose first place over second and third.
You guys asked us for some predictions ahead of the 2022 season, but with so much uncertainty about the cars, it kind of feels like a shot in the dark right now. So in this video, as you saw in the title already, we're going to be ranking the driver lineups for next season from the worst to the best.
And now, since we don't actually know how these new cars are going to perform and which teams are going to be ahead or behind, we are doing these rankings based on how we think these driver pairings would perform under equal machinery.
Be sure to drop this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into our first team, the worst driver pairing of 2022. So at the bottom of our list, we have Haas, with Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. When we look back at last year, there weren't too many highlights for the drivers, aside from Mick getting into Q2. And even if that car improves next year like they say it will, I don't expect to see much out of these two.
It's not for a lack of talent out of Mick, it's just that I would almost still qualify these two as rookies because their first season in F1 didn't really have them in that many tangible battles with other people on track.
Coming in at number 9, we have Williams with Nicholas Latifi and Alex Albon.
Now hear us out, it's not that we think they're bad drivers by any means, it's just that the progress at this team has been a little bit slower over the years. We did finally see Latifi making strides, he got points, but it's still a little bit up in the air when he's consistently been at the back.
And now for Alex Albon, the question is, will he be up to speed after a year of absence?
And as for Alex's entire F1 career prior to joining Williams, it's been extremely turbulent. From being bounced around between two different teams to suddenly being dropped after honestly not that terrible of a performance, it's just difficult for him to build that confidence back up. One of Alex's massive strong suits, though, is his technical knowledge. He was very integral to car development during his year of absence when he was reserve driver for Red Bull.
And they got along very well, so it's great to see that the chemistry going into the season is on their side.
The reason we've put them down in 9th isn't necessarily because we think there's a lack of talent, it's just that there's a lot of uncertainty about how these two will perform together.
Moving up to 8th place, we have Alfa Romeo, with Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou.
Now this one was tough because it's not like we think they're miles ahead of Williams, it's just that with Valtteri's experience, it kind of gives the whole team a leg up.
Now this is our newest pairing going into next season. Guan Yu Zhou is going to be the only rookie coming up from F2, and he didn't really have the most successful Formula 2 career.
Not expecting much from him in 2022 will definitely be a massive adjustment. And I think Valtteri will also have to make a pretty big adjustment. I mean, he's used to fighting at the front. He's been in the top team for 5 years. Going back down to a lower grade team is going to take some getting used to. Look, we don't want to undermine Valtteri's skill here. He's an amazing qualifier. I mean, we saw him match Lewis's qualifying performance for a large majority of the time they were at the team together.
The issue here is we've seen in the past that Valtteri has a bit of a problem trying to get past traffic. We're curious to see how much knowledge Valtteri is going to share with Zhou and see if that helps the pairing along in the season. Moving on now to number 7, which might come as a bit of a surprise to you, we have AlphaTauri with Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda.
Now, Tsunoda was on an upward trend towards the end of the 2021 season, but it is clear that he still has a lot to learn. I think this is kind of a consequence of being fast-tracked through the feeder series system and then being boosted up to Formula 1 so quickly.
We saw some great highlights of Yuki's race pace and defending last year, but when it comes to his qualifying, it's definitely the area that needs improvement.
As he spends more time in the car and more time with the team, it's inevitable that his confidence will begin to build up and he will improve on these areas of weakness.
When looking at his teammate, Gasly had an impressive season last year. He's immensely talented, he scored many points, he got on the podium, his qualifying performance blew everyone away.
Honestly, Pierre was the main one bringing the battle to Alpine in the Constructors' Championship. But as you know, in order to pose a real threat, you need both drivers to be performing consistently, and that's where we think this driver pairing lacks a bit in that department.
Coming in at number 6, this one hurts to say, it's Aston Martin with Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. Sebastian's a 4-time world champion, so it feels really strange to put him this far down in our list.
I think we've all somewhat come to accept the reality that Seb just isn't at that same level of performance that he used to be, but you don't just lose that talent, skill, and knowledge overnight. It comes with the fact that the car was bad. The car was bad, okay? And that is a lot for him to deal with.
But we can't deny that he did get 2 podiums last year, even though one got disqualified. But it's still a great performance considering he was in the 7th fastest car.
And let's not ignore the fact that Seb was the overtaking king in 2021. Look, when you put him in a car that is able to have that performance in wheel-to-wheel battle, he knows how to get the job done. He has great racecraft. He knows how to race. Simple as that. It's just a matter of putting all of those steps together.
When looking at Lance, he's been pinned as an easy target. He's had some very good performances in the past, but also a lot of bad luck.
The thing that Lance seems to lack is consistency. He can have a great weekend or a terrible weekend, but he can't really seem to string together a series of races that will go well for him. Ultimately, this pairing actually has a lot more talent than some people give them credit for. The issue is that they aren't always able to maximize performance out of the car at the same time.
Coming in at number 5, it's Alpine with Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. Look, I think this theory of Fernando falling off has been proven false.
He gave us some of the best wheel-to-wheel battles throughout the entirety of the season, sometimes placing his car much higher than it should have finished in the race.
Now, when looking at his teammate, Ocon has sort of a different driving style.
Ocon is one of those types of drivers that always seemingly knows exactly where to put his car. I mean, this was integral to him getting his win in Hungary. We saw him in Saudi Arabia being at the front out of the blue because he knows how to avoid dangerous areas. But this also comes with the factor that he can at times be a little bit more of a cautious driver.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but just when it comes to fighting for championships, that most likely won't benefit him.
Ocon's progress in F1 has been a bit more consistent and gradual, but it is also a little bit more slow-moving than some of the younger talent that has come in after him.
When looking at the driver pairing, the strengths lie more in Alonso's favor.
But we also saw that in 2021, they finished in 10th and 11th with very few points separating them, so there is a lot of consistency with this driver pairing.
As we get into our top 4, these ones were really tough to rank. I mean, you have 8 great drivers, each capable of winning races. But we have to rank them somehow, and in 4th place, we have McLaren with Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo.
I think Daniel is so much better than the form that he showed in 2021. There were some very high moments, but he's still adapting to the car. We've seen this with his switch from Red Bull to Renault, that it takes him almost a full season to get adapted. And this is one of his main weaknesses.
I'm scared though, just because with the 2022 regulations coming in, he might have to do another year of adjusting.
One thing he really needs to improve on is his qualifying pace, because when he qualifies a bit further down, he seems to have a bit more difficulty turning his race around. But that being said, Daniel still is one of the best overtakers on the grid. That is a fact. It's just a matter of putting all of the pieces together to make sure that he has good consistency and good pace week in and week out.
And it's quite clear that his teammate Lando had exactly that in the first half of the season. He was always up there in qualifying, he scored some podiums, and he had his best season to date.
I think we've all seen after the 2021 season that Lando does have the potential to be a front-runner threat, but he hasn't had enough experience actually battling at the front. He needs more time in those high-stress scenarios, learning how to make crucial decisions. Lando's skills are still developing, and yes, he's had one great breakout season so far, but I wouldn't say he's at that level just yet for championship contention.
But when both of these two are up to speed and maximizing performance, they have a full package to be reckoned with. And now moving on to our top 3. Coming in 3rd place, we have Ferrari with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc.
It was really difficult to decide whether this driver pairing should be placed in 2nd or in 3rd, given their consistency, but ultimately the reason why we put them down in 3rd is because neither of them have been in a championship battle, and it's really difficult to know how they would react under that type of pressure.
It goes without a doubt that these two are a very strong pairing and are very consistent. I mean, you had Sainz, who had the longest streak of points finishes last year. And with everyone having to adjust this year to the new cars, his adaptability will definitely play in his favor.
As for Charles, it's undeniable that he has amazing quali pace, and he's also a proven race winner. The issue with him sometimes is that he can be a little bit more reckless, and that gets him in trouble. But at the end of the day, Charles being a bigger risk taker has gotten him wins in the past. Maybe that will help him in the future once they have a more competitive car. This pairing's really interesting though, because Sainz had more points at the end of the season, but Charles finished on track higher up more frequently. So it's an odd little combo here that they both clearly display their strengths. But these two clearly respect each other, and they never had any issues on track. So it just goes to show that when they work together, they are an absolute threat.
So now it obviously comes between Red Bull and Mercedes for who gets first and second place. For the runner-ups, we've gone with Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez of Red Bull Racing. Now the reason why we place them above Ferrari is because they have that experience of fighting for a title. Max was clearly on another level last year, and the pairing with Sergio worked really well in their favor. Checo's now being referred to as the Minister of Defense, and we can't forget his excellent tire management.
Checo had a great first year with the team, and although he still had some adjusting to do, he really proved that he belongs in that seat. There still are a couple of loose ends that he needs to tie up, but once he works on those minor factors, I think this team could become the full package.
It's hard to say if Checo is better than the two Ferrari drivers individually, but we think the pairing of Sergio and Max is the perfect match.
As we all know, Max is clearly the #1 driver at this team, and his aggressive driving style really helps him pull out victories when people may least expect it. The difference, though, is that his aggressive driving style is also partly what gets him in trouble. He has learned a hell of a lot though over the past season. I mean, he won a world championship, he was in contention down to the very last race. That is a lot of high pressure, and I think having that knowledge and that experience automatically bumps him up ahead of other drivers.
Max is very comfortable in his car and with his team, but with all the new regulations coming next year, we're curious to see if that will disrupt anything. So that means in our first place, we have Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Lewis is a 7-time world champion, and he's won a race in every single season he's been a part of.
And although Lewis did make some uncharacteristic mistakes in 2021, he still showed that he doesn't let the pressure get to him.
No matter what gets thrown at him, he'll always find a way to fight back.
Lewis holds so many records for a good reason. He's always able to extract the most out of his car. He is a reliable driver that you can depend on. Lewis has gone through so many different eras in F1 over the course of his career that I don't think it will be a struggle for him to adapt to these new cars.
And when talking about adaptability, we've already seen that George is able to do this. Of course, you were expecting us to use this as a reference, but in Secure 2020, George got into a brand new car that was too small for him, while driving with boots that didn't fit him, using a system he was unfamiliar with, and he almost won the goddamn race. His first weekend in that car, and he was able to almost be perfectly on pace with Valtteri's qualifying performance, which is a big feat. As we've said before, Valtteri was almost always on pace with Lewis, so if that's any indication, George will get up to speed very quickly.
George clearly knows his place in the Mercedes timeline, so he won't want to do anything stupid to jeopardize it.
These two have immense respect for each other, and as a driver pairing, both in terms of qualifying and race day performance, they truly have the potential to be completely dominant.
And that is why we put Mercedes at the top of our ranking. Overall, we're pretty content with our list, but when looking back, there was definitely some pairings here that were a lot harder to rank over the others. What do you think of our list? Do you agree with it or disagree? Be sure to let us know your thoughts down in those comments. While you're down there, don't forget to leave this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you in our next video.